Hey, in this video, we're going to learn how to start contributing to AsyncAPI initiative. There are two ways to engage with us with a contribution. And when I say contribution, I mean in this case, in this video, it's about really direct contribution to some repository, like changes in some repository where you want to suggest something. Of course, there are different ways of contributing. And I personally value actually every kind of interaction with us. There are many contributors I know that didn't make any single change in any of our repositories, but they still contribute to the initiative by talking about us at conferences or engaging with the community and promoting us. But in this particular video, we are about the contributions that make a change in a repository. So you usually start with an issue because that's a place where we discuss things. It's good practice to first create an issue and discuss a change rather than jump directly to a pull request. But of course, there can be a situation that the issue is already there and it's well described. Then just ping us, you pick it up and jump into the pull request. Now, if it's a pull request that you want to work on, then yeah, just use our instructions. So let's see, in case of pull request, we should use our proposed Git workflow. So the basic rules you should know that we have here is, first of all, we all work through forks. Even us, the maintainers, the members of the core team, none of us make changes directly in the upstream repository. We all work through forks. And it's a really good approach to not make changes directly in the master branch of your fork, because you usually make more than one contribution and you want to make sure that your fork is always up to date with the upstream. So yeah, my good advice, don't make changes directly to the master branch of your fork. And later on in this video, we're gonna see why. So first of all, we need to pick up an issue to work on. So there's a super simple issue you can work on. It's a HTML template. It requires a tiny change. You might say like it's trivial. Why the heck you want to work on it? It's like as simple as just removing 2 semicolons from the code. But yeah, if we have an issue for it, it means it's important. Even if it's so trivial as removing a semicolon. Just remember, it's an open source project. There are not many of us working on it. So any help is needed. And we personally don't have time to solve all the issues, especially the trivial ones, because we don't have time to get distracted by the trivial issues because there are many different issues that we need to cover in different repositories. So something that as simple as that is important because, for example, in case of AsyncAPI, we use Sonar Cloud to make sure that the quality of our projects is good. So as you can see, for example, here for HTML template, you could say, okay, the quality gate passes, well, it's green or good, but as a developer, when you see number 12 of code smells, even though it's green, gives you a bit of a feeling that something is not right. So we also want to have those code smells solved, like in case of the semicolon issue, where we have 2 semicolons left in the code, and that's already 2 points in the code smell for the quality gate. But yeah, that's the issue we're going to work on. So to summarize, that issue is about editing a single file, all.js file, and removing 2 semicolons from the 2 different lines. Let us go to those lines. Yeah, it's line 64 and 105. Correct. Now, you can contribute to a project in 2 different ways. In case it's a just one-time contribution and you're changing just one thing in one file, it really doesn't make sense to work with your terminal and Git client on your local machine. GitHub UI gives you an option to edit files in the UI. I recommend this option only when there's just one file that you have to edit. Don't work with multiple files because it's simply harder. You can try it on your own and you're going to see for yourself that it's not that easy to edit more than just one file for one pull request. But yeah, in this case, for example, when there's a change in one file, I would never go with installation of Git on local if I wouldn't have it just to change one file on GitHub. So try it on your own later. It's as simple as just clicking on the edit button, making changes in the file, and submitting a pull request later on. It's all like click by click, like a wizard. So we need to prepare a fork and configure it locally because we want to work. The assumption is we want to work with the repository for more than just one pull request. Okay, then let's go to HTML template repository. And let's first of all fork the repository. So just click on fork, choose where you want to fork it. Wait a second. And that's it. It's a fork is created. Now just click on the clone button and copy the link to clone the repo and go to the terminal. Okay, I'm in the terminal. So now I'm in the location where I want to keep my project, where I want to clone it. So yeah, git clone, the project is cloned. Let's see what we have. Okay. As you can see, I'm using some plugin for the terminal that tells me that I'm already in a Git repo, in a clone of the Git repo on a master branch. Now it's important to configure your local fork because you always want it to be up to date with the upstream, so with the original repository HTML template in the AsyncAPI organization, not your fork. Because you need to know that HTML template repository is going to live in AsyncAPI organization, and it's going to continue to evolving. So let's imagine there's a timeline. Here you made your first pull request to the project, but the next one you're going to do in 2-3 months, let's say. But in between, there are many different changes into the upstream, so in the original repository. So you would basically have to make a lot of manual work to make sure that the when you make a first attempt 3 months later, that you make sure that the your local fork is up to date with the upstream. So instead of going into this issue that you forget to do it, and it's pretty common that you just forget in 3 months that your fork is outdated, and you start working on changes locally, and then bam, all of a sudden you realize that you made a lot of changes to pretty outdated branch and you run into many conflicts. You don't want that. So better to always, when you create a fork and clone it locally, first of all, make sure that your master branch on your fork is synchronized with the master branch from the original repo, from the upstream. And how to do it? Follow the instructions. So we need to add the original repo to the remotes. And it's not the fork, it's the link to the original. Now fetch changes from the latest upstream master. Now set your local master branch to follow the upstream master. All good, but let's make sure it happened. Okay, looks good. So what happened? Now, basically, when you do, you're pulling not from the fork from the GitHub, but from the original upstream repository. So it's pretty easy, pretty simple to always make sure that your master is up to date with the upstream. Now let's say create a branch on which we want to work. And let's call it like, okay, so we have new branch opened. Now let's open the editor. And let's jump into the editor. Let's go to the file we want to change. It was in filters, all.js, line 60 something. Yeah, 64 and 105. So I remember, yeah, that's it. Save the change. And that's it. Let's go back to the terminal. Okay, let's see what changes we have in the Git repo. Okay, so there's just one file modified. So let's add it. Okay, it's done. Now we need to commit the change and push it to the repo. For the first push, we're gonna have to do something like this. Okay, looks good. Let's go to the pull request. You see the Git even suggested link. Let's copy and check it out. Let's paste the link here. So you can see it's a direct UI to suggest a pull request, which comes from the fork into the upstream. Before you click on create pull request, you need to know that we follow so-called conventional commits. To read more about conventional commits, go to this website. But let's go back to the pull request. What you just need to know is that in our case, the summary of the pull request need to start with a prefix, a special prefix that indicates to our CI if given pull request after merge should trigger release, major release, minor release, patch release, or nothing really, or maybe a rebuild of documentation. So just remove what's suggested, and in case of this pull request, we don't want to trigger a release because we're not even fixing a bug. We're just refactoring code to make it better, to remove code smells. So let's do a prefix that will not trigger anything on the CI. And let's try like what we did. So add, not actually add, remove semicolons to stop code smell alerts. That's it. Let's also copy that to make it much easier here. And also remember to adjust this suggestion to, because if you make a change in a pull request, something like fixes, and what was the number of the issue? 70. So this part will handle automatically closure of the issue that you're fixing in this PR. So once this PR is approved, merged, and closed, automatically the linked issue will be closed as well. So remember about those changes. And that's about it. Create a pull request. And yeah, give us some time to review your pull request. If we are pretty lame with response time, which may happen, we sometimes are super overwhelmed by a work we have to do. So please try to contact us, maybe pinging our official account on Twitter, or just going to our Slack, or just mentioning us in the comments. And yeah, that's it. I encourage you again, try with your first contribution. Don't be afraid that something will fail or that you waste our time. We don't think this way. That's why we're recording videos like this. If you need some help, also feel free to contact us with whatever questions you have. Cheers.